Prime Minister Mark Carney, who will introduce his first budget in October. Carney has already warned of austerity measures to come, saying last week, quote, "These are tough times, and there is still no deal on tariffs with the White House." Now, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre will be back in the chamber after securing a return to the Commons in an Alberta by-election last month, and he will face off with Carney for the first time later today during question period this afternoon. So for our coverage, let's head over to our parliamentary reporter, Janice McGregor. She's going to set everything up for us. So Janice, tell us a little bit more about what you're watching for on this day one of the fall sitting.
Indeed. And look, Mark Carney has been really clear about the need for his government to be moving at speed, to be getting a lot of urgent work done at a time when there is an awful lot that's concerning both in the economy and in terms of the geopolitics around the world. But it is very difficult to move quickly from a legislative point of view when you do not have a majority in the House of Commons. And that's the situation they find themselves in, a bit short of being able to completely run the table, being in a situation where they do need partners if they are going to get any bills passed. And we did not see an awful lot passed for the brief spring sitting, the 4 weeks or so, and such that sort of they have a lot of sort of things they have to pick up where they left off, including the first thing that the House is going to resume debate on this hour, C3, the bill to restore citizenship to the so-called lost Canadians. This is something court has ordered the government to do, change these rules, found them to be unconstitutional, and given them a deadline of November to get this done. It is Steve McKinnon who is the House Leader who is in charge of getting Mark Carney's legislative agenda through. He was speaking to reporters earlier this morning talking about what he hopes can be a different tone, a more kind of productive working atmosphere in the House of Commons this fall than perhaps they had seen in the previous Parliament, reaching out, he said, to Conservative voters and through them, Conservative MPs, asking them to, in his words, pitch in dealing with some national priorities. Take a listen.
You know, a wise man once said, you don't negotiate on principles, but you can negotiate on details. And we're wide open to talk with the opposition about how we can make a piece of legislation happen. So I would say to Mr. Poilievre and to those that are around him, listen to those Conservative voters. Listen to premiers like Danielle Smith, like Doug Ford, like Tim Houston, who are pitching in, and I think reaping the electoral rewards for pitching in and helping build this country. That is very much the spirit of the times. The spirit of the times, I think, is no longer around three-word slogans and facile solutions.
One of the things he was asked about is the fate of C2, the border security bill, which it must be said also has a number of immigration measures in it. It is a government priority, but there were a number of critiques of it from different corners, civil rights organizations unsure whether this bill could set a dangerous precedent. Also people concerned about Canada's digital sovereignty and believing that not enough was in that bill to protect Canadians' digital rights from being threatened by American tech giants. So would they need to amend perhaps C2 going forward? McKinnon suggested that the place to do that would be at committee. He needs the party's help to get it to committee to consider if there are options perhaps to improve the bill to address these concerns. So the exact opposite of a my way or highway approach. He does seem open to working with opposition MPs to make things better. An example of perhaps an olive branch in return, he suggested that there will be an opposition day, a chance for the Conservatives to set the agenda of the House, debate a motion of their choosing, have a vote on it, amplify some of their own issues and some of their own voices on something that's important to them. Right out the gate, starting sort of this week, we will see the first opportunity for the Conservatives to put forward some alternatives of their own. So something to kind of deal with their need to stay in the news and stay relevant. No news, though, out of Stephen McKinnon about what will be probably the highlight of the fall sitting, that is the federal budget, which we are expecting in a few weeks, next month. Of course, this is something Mark Carney's government did not get done before summer recess, punted to fall, but this is usually an opportunity to show the government's work in terms of how much things are going to cost, to put everything together under one fiscal framework, and yes, to reveal how high the federal deficit might be, given all the priorities they've been talking about. The new housing agency they unveiled yesterday, the major projects office, those key priorities for the economy that they were talking about last week, and of course the defense industrial strategy, which could take billions to execute. Lost in all this, perhaps, and this came up at the major projects announcement, more of a focus on the climate. Carney told us last week, the Prime Minister did, that there would be a climate competitiveness strategy unveiled by his government going forward. Elizabeth May, the leader of the Green Party, didn't seem to be buying it, that the Liberals were really taking climate issues seriously anymore. She said rage farming had caused them to scrap the consumer carbon tax, and she was telling reporters today that she simply believes her party is becoming a lone voice in terms of standing up for climate as a priority.
I'm not wedded to a carbon price as a way to reduce emissions, but if you're not going to have the one thing that was working, what do you put in place instead? And if you put a pause on the EV mandate and you talk about fossil fuel infrastructure being potentially acceptable, then you've lost the plot.
She may feel that, but we also know that there are a group of Liberal MPs for whom climate issues remain very important. They have formed a new caucus inside the Liberal Party to continue to advocate for these issues, argue against perhaps the abandonment of some things that the Trudeau government was doing previously. So this is definitely a policy area to watch.
And of course, all eyes will also be on how Poilievre and Carney have their face-off for the first time in question period. That's in a few hours. So, Janice, could there be some common ground found between the Liberals and Conservatives on some policies?
Well, it depends, if you're asking about something that happens in front of the cameras, like question period, I would expect a very vigorous debate. These two have not, as you say, had a chance to really have a good back and forth since the election debates last spring. So I would anticipate some real contrasting positions by the two of them. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty of sort of different aspects legislatively, is there room to sort of meet in the middle and work out some compromises? Poilievre, speaking to his caucus yesterday, seemed to suggest there would be.
We're going to work to turn things around. We'll work with anybody from any party in order to make this session a success for the Canadian people. That's why we were so cooperative in helping the things pass that we agreed with in the spring session, and it's why we'll work even harder in the fall session. We will oppose things we're against, support things we're for, but we will also propose solutions to the problems Liberals have created.
And his deputy leader, Melissa Lantsman, also on her way in this morning was talking about sort of opposing when it makes sense, supporting things when it makes sense, and in her words, exposing what the Liberals aren't telling everybody as they go along. Look, this is very much a two-party show in this House of Commons. They have such an overwhelming number of the seats split between the two of them. There are still some other parties. Of course, the Bloc Québécois has a 22-member caucus. We are going to hear from Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet very shortly about his party's priorities and maybe some things they might be negotiating in return for some critical votes here and there. But the NDP reduced to a group that is too small to have official party status. This will be a different dynamic in the House of Commons than we saw, for example, at this time last year.
Thanks for this, Janice. That is the CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa.